This is probably going to be the single most important video I think you could watch this year for 3D. It's similar to things I made before, but I don't think I've made anything on this scope. I'd highly suggest you sit down, grab a coffee, and just watch this video. Don't model, don't do anything, just watch this video. I think this will give you a completely different mindset in the world of 3D. So it is on the ngon and quad workflow. I've talked about this a lot, but in this video I'm going to actually model something with ngons and booleans, and I'm going to model something using quads in Subsurf. I'm going to model the same exact thing, and if this video doesn't hammer in the fact that ngons do not matter, I don't know what will. So I'm gonna show you something that might blow your mind. So if this video provides you any sort of value, we'd really appreciate if you hopped over to our Patreon. We have exclusive monthly tutorials, decal packs. We'll give you our project files for the tutorials. We'll critique your art and models to help you become a better artist. Everything over there is super valuable to improving your 3D skill set. So if you're not yet on our Patreon, you can get those perks for as little as $2 a month. So check it out. Link in the description. Let's get on with the video. So what I'm going to do is model something really quickly using HardOps, box cutter, ngon, boolean workflow, right? I don't want you to model with me. I want you to watch this video. So I'm just going to do this really quick. What I want to do is, first of all, hit this with a chamfer. I am going to go pretty fast on this because this is not a modeling tutorial. This is me making a point tutorial. So I'm going to make this really quick. Going to hit that with a mirror, come into the side, come onto this, bevel, Q bevel. Let's do, I guess 10 segments is fine. We're going to hit it like that. We'll fix the shading in a bit. I want to come to the side here, hit this with an ngon cut. Oops. Come through here, do something like that. And then on the back, I want to run a small little bevel here. We'll give this like 10 segments. And come on here, give this like 10. Come on here, give this like 10. Very simple, straight to the point model. I'm also going to hit it with a bevel. So I think I'll hit it with a bevel with a hard and normals turned on. And the shading is still fighting with me, so I'll use a weighted normal instead. So let me bevel. Not going to use hard and normal, is going to use weighted normal to clean up all the shading. And here we go. Here is our completed model. So we'll get back to this in a bit, but I don't want to talk anymore about this right now. So this took me, what, 30 seconds to model. Did not take me long at all. Yes, we do have ngons. We're going to get back to that talk in a bit. Now I want to model the same exact thing using quads in Subsurf. This is probably the workflow you were taught by, you know, the usual 3D modeling instructors on YouTube. Blender Guru, if you guys saw Blender Guru's chair tutorial, for example, fantastic tutorial. He shows you quad and Subsurf workflow. If you've watched CG Masters, any of the big guys, you've definitely seen the usual Subsurf and quad workflow, which is what we're about to do right here. I'm going to model the same exact piece, or at least close to the same exact piece. Dimensions might be like microscopically off, but yeah, I'm going to model the same piece using all quads. So to do this, we're going to come in here with the cube. This is actually a bit trickier, which is why I always say, like, understanding topology is the most important thing you can do. Whether you use quads, whether you use ngons, understanding topology is so important. So, alright, we have to kind of think about this analytically. How do we want to make this model in terms of quads, so all quads? So the first thing we need to do, we're not going to deal with the bevels at all. Subsurf will actually round out the edges for us. So we only want to get the base block out. So I'm going to hop into side view here, take this edge, and I'm just going to try to match the curvature as closely as possible. So we'll do something like that, and then we're going to hit this with the inset boolean again. Now, just to be very precise, I'm just going to reuse the cutter that we had over here. So I'm just going to duplicate this piece and then make it roughly as wide. hit it with this, and then run an inset kind of like that. Let me hide all of those, and let me also shade this thing flat. We'll do that in a second. Alright, so we need to apply this boolean here, and now that we have this little inset detail, we can join these all into a quad. Right now this is like a big, you know, ngon right here, so if we join these corners we'll have quads, so we'll do that. All the corners need to be joined, and then we'll shade this as flat, so that way we have like a block out, and then hit this with a symmetry to the other side. Okay, so we have that, looks good. Now what we need is this little hole detail here on the front. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. We have to really think about how we would get this in. So if we're using a quad based destructive workflow, we'd have to, you know, deal with loop cuts and things like that. So we don't really want to use booleans unless they help us. Like the boolean for the inset right here helped us, which is why we used it, but I don't think a boolean right here is going to really help us. So what I'm going to do is drop a loop right here roughly, and let's move it over a bit. So we have that. Let's also drop a loop and try to match it. Oops, wrong side. Drop a loop here, right click, SZ, and then 0 to keep it straight. I'm gonna actually snap it right to that vertex so it's roughly the same height for that hole. Okay, we have that, and I also want to, alright, I want to get a loop going through here, but we have one big ngon. So to sort out this ngon, we'd basically have to turn it into a quad. So we'd run a knife, K, click this, press the C key, press the Z key to cut through, click enter. Same for this area. And just like that, we have a quad. Now up here we do not have any sets of quads, so we could deal with that in a second. I mean, we don't have to do it right now, so let's wait on it. Okay, what I want to do though is get a loop going through here, but I want to make sure this is matching roughly this curvature here. So we're not going to actually bevel this area. The subsurf is going to end up taking care of that. That's what subsurf does. It rounds out the mesh for us. So we use proximity loops to balance out how round it is, and creases as well. So we have this. That's exactly what I want. I want to make sure this is also straight, but I think it is, so there shouldn't be an issue there. Okay, we have that. Let's go ahead and hit it with a symmetry, so that way the same effect is on both sides, and then we can simply make everything quads. Let's first of all cut through here, join this up, hit it with another symmetry, and now we have all quads right there. We have an ngon on this area, so no big deal. Hit it with a knife, hit it with a symmetry. I am going to go fast on this video, like I said. I just want you guys to observe. So now we have pretty much all quads here except for these two perhaps. I do want to keep these even, so let me actually snap that to keep it straight, and then we can join this up. Join these up as well. Join these up. Join these up. So now we need this hole down here. So since we've kind of traced out where the hole is going to be using our edge loops right here, we can simply take these faces and delete them out. So X and then delete faces, and now we have to patch this up. So the easiest way to do this would be to use our vertex snapping tool, E and then Z. We'll fill this in. We're going to need to patch this area up, so let me continue on a knife cut down through there so we can join that up. This is going to be another area we need to sort. So let me first of all EZ, fill this in. We're trying to fill in what we can for right now to make it easier to work with. So we have that. I think that one's already filled in. This can be filled in as well, and this can be, it's going to be an issue, so let's continue a knife cut through here. Fill in these edges, and just like that we have our hole. So let's hit it with a symmetry, Alt X, and then symmetrize, and we basically have the same effect. This is a bit wider here than it is here, but who cares? I mean, it's the same thing besides the size. So we have that. We're still working in all quads, which is good. Exactly what I want. So we have that detail. Now we want this detail here in the back. So to get that detail, we could, you know, try to use loops and mess with it this way, and it's just going to be a pain. Guys, I'm telling you, you can just use booleans and retopo the booleans. So I'm going to steal the cutter for the back piece. Where is it? Let me turn on the cutters collection, and I'm going to steal this cutter right here. I'm going to duplicate it, move it over, and we're going to get roughly the same size cut. Do that. Let's also make sure this is shaded properly. To get it to shade properly, we have to first apply that boolean, and then if we shade it flat, it'll actually replicate. Okay. So we have that, but the issue here is kind of this going on right now. So we have to figure out how exactly can I get this into quads. Well, use the good old knife tool. I think what we could do on this area, a few different solutions. We could slide this one up like that. We could slide this one up like that. I think this is going to be a bit harsh for the overall subsurf. So what I think I might do is simply, we could have also repositioned the cut to a better location, but I'm trying to match the original one. We could cut like that. We could cut like this, and now we have quads, and we're going to need to join these up right here. Now for the back, we're going to have to do that, and then for this area, hit something like that, and then hit it with a symmetry to that side, and we have some extra geo here. We don't really need, dissolve that out. And now what we have is essentially the block out for this piece right here minus the bevels and minus the rounded edges. Now we need to get that using a subsurf modifier. Notice how already we're probably a few minutes in on this one, whereas with this one we modeled it in 30 seconds or so. This one we're a couple minutes into, so I think part of my point has already been made here with the time constraints. Okay, so we have this. Now what we need to do, since we have the block out, we need to run a subsurf on here and get this cleaned up. So I'm going to press Control 3 and run a subsurf with 3 just to make it nice and smooth. And generally on hard surface with subsurf, we don't really want to use auto smooth. Kind of depends in general. Don't need it, turn it off. And now what I'm going to do is simply the usual stuff you probably learned when you were first learning Blender. So notice how the subsurf actually makes the edges nice and rounded like we have on this one. And we can get the same exact effect by simply using proximity loops, and proximity loops are going to act just like the bevels basically. So we can use these to kind of tighten areas up. We have that, can hit it with that. We need to tighten this area up, and now notice how these bevels right here are really tight. We're going to do the same thing using proximity loops, make this area really tight. So we're going to do that. This bottom portion, I think we could do something like that. This area here we're going to pull in. This area here, I'm making these as tight as possible. Notice how we have some pinching. This is another point, guys, like subsurf is not prone to having bad shading. I mean, shading is going to be bad whether you have quads or not. It's how you manage the topology. So this one right here is caused by the pole kind of stretching. So we'll pull that in, make it tight, and Blender's happy. Okay, so it looks like we have an ngon down here we forgot to sort, so join that up. And also we have this right here, evidently. So let me just hit it with that and symmetrize over. Okay, so that looks good. Now for this upper area. Okay, what's going on here? I think we might have an interior face problem. Let me turn off the subsurf briefly and take a look. I think that is our culprit. Yes, that is definitely our culprit. So Need to make sure that passes all the way through. Okay, then we'll symmetrize. Alright, that's fixed. Now we can come up here, make this area really tight. Come in here, make this area really tight. Same for the front. Okay, looks like we have an ngon that we forgot about. So no big deal. Gonna drop that in. Going to join that up. Hit it with a symmetry to save time, and then what we're gonna do is dissolve, re-add the loop. Add the loop again. Pull this down. Boom, have that. Okay, looking pretty good. Did I pull that one in yet? I don't think I did. Okay, so we have that. It's pretty much looking similar to what we had before. So this one, I'm gonna do 2, I think. Something is not happy with me though. It's the way this is routed. Not too worried about it. Going to Control R, Control B, hit it with a manual bevel like that. Turn that back on. There we go. This area, hitting it with that. This area, hitting it with that. This one we're gonna have to Control R, E to flip to this side to align it up. We already did the bottom. So we have that. This area we're gonna need to tighten up by pulling in. And we're getting closer. This needs to be tightened. Let's actually do Control R, Control B to make it nice like that. This is a little bit too tight. Do we have, I see the issue. I beveled a bit too much right there. That should be alright, but just for the sake of consistency, Blender will even out that loop more manually for us. So we do that. A little bit hectic in here. Gonna just kind of hold this a bit by dropping in 2. Make that a bit more round and nice looking. So we have that, and also on this one, nah, it's fine. I was gonna remove the sharps, but I think they're already gone. So we're getting close. Let me symmetrize for anything I may have missed. So we have that. Control 4 is not really making much of a difference, so I think we're just about done here. Gonna do one of those. Gonna do one of these. And then once again, consistency, will hit that with a symmetry. Now we basically have the same model here. If you wanted to get the nice rounded area on the front and on these back areas, you'd have to simply play with these loops a little bit and move them around, like move them away so that way the subsurf can naturally round it. I'm just trying to, run through this process, so you can do that if you want. But my point here is I got the same exact result using ngons in probably 1/4 of the time. This is how you can quickly model stuff using ngons. This is how you can quickly model stuff, not quickly, this is how you can model stuff using quads. This is the workflow most of you were taught. The subsurf, quad, and destructive workflow. The worst part about this is there's not really room for change. If I want to quickly move around a cut, move it into a different position, this one gives me the freedom to do that. I can go in here, grab this, move it in, scale it, move it up. I can do whatever I want because I'm working non-destructively that way. Whereas on this one, I can't. I could, come in here if I wanted to and maybe like lift this and move this, but it's like, why, You're gonna do that and wonder what the hell am I doing with my time. This workflow right here using ngons, not only is the poly count, not that it really matters in this case, not only is the poly count low here, the geometry is really elegant even though we have ngons. This is just super high poly. Obviously if you're doing a game asset, you'd bake this onto the low poly base mesh for this one. But like right here, some people are going to come in and say, oh, well, what about with ngons? You could do, I'm sorry, what about with game assets, that is? Well, for game assets, you could come in here and do the quad workflow and bake it down, whatever. Or on this one, you could do like all my other videos show, for game assets. You come in here, you get a nice even distribution of ngons, you triangulate, make sure the shading looks good using weight to normal modifier, bring it into the game engine, you're going to have absolutely zero problems. So obviously for concept designing, running ngons and booleans and whatnot, I think everyone would agree universally this workflow is fine. But then people still come in and they're like, well, what about the topology? Right, the question's valid. What about the topology? What point are you making here? Some programs I know do not handle ngons. None of those programs I use and none of those programs most of you use. So for those commenters that come in, yes, there are minor exceptions for certain engines that I don't touch and probably will never touch, but in 99% of situations, this workflow is not only more efficient, it's more fun. It gives you a much cleaner result because you can really handle the curvature and the convexity of the edges very nicely using bevels, whereas with this one, it's very finicky. You have to do a lot of destructive labor here, move loops around. The only positive side with this is you can easily define how big your bevels are. But I mean, you can do the same thing here, but if you want to have like a little bit of a different type of bevel, maybe it's a bit more rounded up on the top compared to the bottom. This is like the only situation in which that might be a bit easier to do than it is on here, because by default the bevel is going to bevel over evenly. So that is one of the only downsides, I guess. Other than that, game assets and ngons, completely fine. I've made videos on this, triangulated okay, make sure the shading's good, and make sure the bakes don't have any artifacts, and you can use this in game engines. Everything gets triangulated anyways in a game engine, so this workflow still reigns supreme. In concept art, obviously this workflow is the go-to as well. This is extremely powerful for learning and understanding topology. One of the best things any 3D artist can do is understand topology. I do have a lot of people coming in and they go straight to the ngon workflow, which is fine. My partner Ryu went right into add-ons ngon workflow and learned topology just fine. The issue is when you start relying on this workflow. And I think that's another thing, is a lot of people that hammer quad workflow are trying to teach correct techniques and correct topology. And I say correct loosely because how do you define correct, right? People are trying to teach an in-depth understanding of topology, and that is why I enjoy learning this workflow and recommend you understand quad workflow, because once you understand the rules, you can bend them very easily using workflows like this. So I think there's a lot of people out there that might be very comfortable with this workflow, but if I asked them to model this using all quads, they'd have no clue what to do. And that's where I think the quad junkies out there and I would agree, because a lot of people force bad habit by not learning both. Every single person needs to understand quads, understand how to use them, understand how to bend the rules of quads and start working with ngons to get similar results and make your workflow easier, more efficient, more fun. That is the #1 thing you as a 3D artist can do. Learn quad workflow, understand the tools, understand topology. And as you model more and do more projects, topological understanding is going to increase a lot. Even just doing the good old hard surface workflow has dramatically increased my understanding of topology. So both workflows will increase it, but if you can make this, you should be able to make this. So I really want you guys to start understanding topology, learning it, and not relying all the time on bad topology, because if you have bad topology and don't know how to handle it, that is why a lot of game developers are saying, I want all quads in your portfolio, I want to see clean topology, I want to see a good game asset. The reason they're asking you for that is they want to understand or know that you understand topology. Once they know that you understand topology, then they're going to let you come in and bend the rules to actually get something that works and looks good. So that's like another big reason a lot of companies say, I want to see good topology in your portfolio, because that is the way it should be taught. You should understand how to model things cleanly and then bend the rules. So the reason people are asking you guys for quads and for game engines, game assets, if an employer is saying I want to see quads, the reason they're asking you for that is either one, you're using an engine that does not support ngons, or 2, they want to make sure you understand topology and how to model destructively with quads before they trust you to be able to use ngons, which are traditionally considered as bad workflow. So I'm on the side of pretty much everyone. I'm logical, right? I'm logical as to when you should use a workflow, when you shouldn't, and why this might be a bit more beneficial to you than this workflow, at least at the beginning of your modeling career. So I hope this video helped, hope it gave you some insight and showed you can get a damn similar result using quad workflow. But I mean, even with this workflow, the shading is arguably worse than this workflow, so there's even downsides to using all quads. So hope this gave you some insight. I know I kind of went on a rant over at the end, but I think it'll really help you guys out. So my challenge for you is to, for the next few days, I want you guys to model something simple using the main techniques I teach on my channel, ngons, booleans, and bevels. I want you to model something fun like this, and then I want you to challenge yourself to model the same exact thing, all with quads, all with subsurf, understand edge flow, understand subdivision surfaces, understand how you can position different areas, different edges on your mesh in different areas to get different results. And that's how you'll really have an in-depth understanding of topology and how to get yourself a clean portfolio and a deep, deep understanding of 3D. That's my challenge for you. I think it'll help you guys out a lot. Hope the video gave you some insight. I'd really appreciate a like and a comment if this kind of gave you some relief that what you're doing is not bad and not necessarily, not bad, not good, just, you know, an option. So if this helped you out, I'd really appreciate a like. And if you're not subscribed, I know a lot of you guys get recommendations to my channel, which might make you think you're subscribed, but you might not be. So don't miss out on anything. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. I'll keep making cool videos like this. And aside from that, join us on Patreon. There's my plug for the video, and I'll see you in the next one.